Good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron Burcell. I'm the CEO of Methinks. Our guest today is Steve Rodriguez, the current head of marketing at Wonderschool. Steve is a longtime growth and marketing executive. He recently ran growth at Bird after they were acquired by Scoot. And Steve ran marketing and at Loop Media alongside me. We worked together again at Grockit, where Steve was a product executive. I want to keep this tight today. I know everyone's very busy working from home. I want to give us time to have a Q&A at the end, but it's really important that we get through this information as efficiently as possible. Today we'll be discussing qualitative research in the context of product development. Specifically, we want to focus on three specific times in a product development lifecycle where you want to talk with your target customers. Specifically, we want to get user feedback during the prototyping process, the early stages of testing, to identify and confirm the MVP, and later when it's time for go-to-market planning. So without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to Steve. Steve, thanks for joining us this morning, and I appreciate you making time. I know things are pretty busy over at Wonderschool, and we really appreciate you having the time to share your learning with us today.
Sure, Aaron. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the intro. I hope everyone is doing well under these sort of uncertain times. But I'm happy to be here and chat a little bit about this. I'm not going to waste a ton of time with promos for products, etc. I just want to dive right in and talk about, how it's absolutely critical to get customer insights, not just signal from data as you approach these problems for your product. Quantitative research is definitely critical too. It's important to testing and determining the customer experience and onboarding flows, getting general profiling information about your customer. But I've found in my experience, there's no substitute for talking with your customer to gain insights. And, if a lot of you are like me, you don't have a ton of budget or time to necessarily attach a research professional and to recruit people to come to a facility, with cameras and video and editing, et cetera. And what I'm finding is there's a lot of great options, methinks being one of them, that are available that will do all of this less expensively. And I think there's some additional features, sort of tricks that these products can pull off that you're unable to do with other services. We're using methinks right now, and it's worked very well for our needs, particularly with what Aaron just mentioned on sort of these stages of testing that we're going through. And it's worked for our budget and our timeline. We're able to move quickly. So right now, what I'm going to do is take you through a few general slides to give you a little background of how we're using things to attack each one of these stages. And then at the end, we'll get a little bit of time for Q&A. So bear with me here a second. Here's what we're going to cover today. Customer interviews. Like I said, extremely important in early stages. The customer interviews in beta I found in my past experience to be valuable. I'll give you some good examples there, and then some of the go-to-market planning stuff that we've been using methinks for. And we can go on to the next slide. So, using customer interviews to get feedback has been critical for Wonderschool. What we were able to do was to generate feedback that gave us data about how people were approaching finding childcare. And for those of you who don't know, Wonderschool is a marketplace for parents to find quality childcare for their children, and it's also a marketplace where directors are able to start and market their in-home daycare services to parents. What we needed to find out was on the parent side of things, what was important to those folks in the early stages, so that we could make sure that we build solutions that address those, but also make sure that we built sort of business solutions that supported what would work for the marketplace. So in the early stages, we used our customer interviews to tell us that parents, for example, in the initial stages were very, very interested in location and price. It came to very clearly in the interviews that we had, and we were able to ask follow-on questions that were crucial to us learning more about what that meant to them. What we found is that later in their experience, they turned their focus toward quality. And what we gathered from this data was like, we could build important product features that highlighted location and price and help people to find that effectively. But when it came down to quality, we had to put in other product solutions that would instill a sort of the underpinnings of quality that these programs had, make sure that was communicated well in the later stages for a parent. And what that did, that allowed us to invest in measures that built quality in our programs, and therefore we were able to build a much larger business. We can go to the next slide. The customer interviews in a beta product, I found very important earlier in my work at Scoot. I can give you some good examples of what went on there. What we were finding. So if you're not familiar with Scoot, Scoot is a service that was acquired by Bird. It's a service where you can pick up a motor scooter, start it using the app and take off and go for a ride, right? So this is something that we wanted to ensure that people understood how to ride these vehicles and were safe, etc. And we had learned that if we were going to retain these customers, we had to create confident riders. So while we were able to use our interviews to learn about our customer, the ethnographic studies, to understand their environments, their feelings, etc., what we were able to do was tweak and refine our features based on the feedback that we could only gather through these interviews. And what we were finding is that if a writer was going to retain, they had to become a confident writer. And so in what we were building for our MVP, we approached it in such a way that we interviewed writers and actually created, as a growth person, this is crazy, but we created friction in our onboarding flow that was built around creating a confident writer. So while it had some issues with creating friction and onboarding, what it did was ultimately led to stronger retention. So for each of those customers we acquired them for a much longer period of time than our competitors were able to do so. I was only able to find out that information by using direct customer interviews to get the kind of qualitative feedback that I needed. And it turned out to be quite successful, and our beta product developed nicely around this core feature of a set of videos that taught a rider how to ride a motor scooter confidently and safely, and then it really kept that retention strong over time. We can go to the next slide. So go-to-market planning. I'm going to go back to my experience at Wonderschool for this. This is something where, as we were looking at our go-to-market data, and we were trying to learn more about what was going to be the differentiator between acquiring a lead and closing on a customer. We found that there had to be a stronger attachment of the benefits statement to our marketing. We're able to learn this in our customer interviews, because what we found was that people wanted to understand more about the benefits of what Wonderschool is providing, so that they could make this important decision at this life stage, right, of putting their child into daycare. We were able to sort of harvest the kind of language that we needed to present as we ran these customer interviews. It wasn't so much like we could go out and find keywords that we knew had keyword volume, and we're likely going to convert, in terms of like the lead generation sense. But in order to close on those, we had to understand what that customer needed to hear to create the kind of lead that was actually going to convert. And we used methinks to harvest that information through our video interviews, because what we could do is speak directly with people and see how they responded to the types of language that we used. What that did was just made our marketing efforts in search and paid social just to be much, much stronger, because we were not only creating awareness, but we were creating awareness around the messages that people wanted to hear for such an important decision. So it became a very quick and an important method for us to do that. And that's the end of my slides for today. And we can move on to the Q&A.
Steve, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts in this presentation, giving us solid examples. I really appreciate it. You and I have worked together a long time.
Yes, we have.
We've built audiences of tens of millions worldwide for large consumer startups and companies. I know you've worked at places like Disney and larger organizations where there's the time in between product releases to really focus in on what your customer is doing and saying in reaction to your products. And I'm curious, because I know you've run product and engineering at times, do you really feel like it's important to do customer interviews between every release or periodically? And I know you flagged 3 really important times here. Are there other times in which you would want to check in with your customers and have a chat with them?
Yeah, there's some of the times, the examples I gave were at times what I would call like a heightened need to do that. And those times they come up quite often, sometimes unplanned. But in our regular day-to-day work, I continue to encourage, particularly with our design, our UX team, that they have a regular cadence of these things, because we're able to do it so quickly. Even some of the examples I gave today, some of these had 1 week turnaround times. We're able to go for example, like methinks would be able to provide for us very quickly the audience we needed. So we didn't have to go facilitate that. That's a time-consuming experience. And that audience was targeted exactly what we needed. So it was there. All we had to do was develop what we wanted to ask, the kind of data we needed to return. That just takes a lot of weight off the experience, make it move very quickly. So in my experience, it's a thing that you can do on a regular cadence, and it's important.
Great, thanks, Steve. Ali, do we have more questions?
Yeah, we do. So someone is asking, let me check right now. What are the key advantages that remote research has over in person?
That's a great question. I think a lot of what I found is the speed with which we can do this. Like I said, the turnaround times are very, very quickly, and what I find is the working with the team at methinks, we're able to just give them a general understanding of what we're trying to achieve, and quite often they're coming back to us and saying, "Yeah, this is how we would recommend that we package this up for you," like putting together the target audience, the timing, all sorts of things. It's like having a team, at your disposal, extension of your team in a lot of ways.
Cool. We're trying to keep this tight, Steve. We're trying to reinforce that we do things faster, more efficiently. So we promised everyone a 15-minute timeline on this, and we're sticking pretty close. I think we have time for one more question. Ali, do you have any additional questions?
Yes. Someone is asking, for customer insights, do you recommend hosting research projects ahead of every big release? Or do you think business should start getting used to the idea of implementing product research as a recurring process?
Yeah, I think the latter. I think it's obvious that you would do it for big product releases. It would be almost, you just do it, right? It's a regular process at this point. But like I said, on a regular cadence, this is a valuable investment. The value of the insights that you gain sometimes, are things that you had assumptions built for, and then the data you gain from this is telling you otherwise, and it gives you time to go re-examine. I think that's important to do just on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve. It's been awesome having you here today. I, again, really appreciate it. I think we might have a few more questions. We might take those offline and answer those. I appreciate everyone's
Sure.
patience, and thanks for joining us today. Of course, if you have any research needs, we'd love to help you out. Feel free to email us at sales@methinks.io. You can also just reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We're always responsive to those areas. And we look forward to connecting with everyone that's been on this webinar in person. Thanks again for your time. And Steve, special thanks to you. Hope you and your family are safe during this coronavirus epidemic. And hope everyone is safe and secure for the time being.
Thanks, Aaron. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.